think it's probably a pretty common thing.
Tens of millions of dollars lost as some riders are turned off from tapping on. The latest delay in Presto's rollout.
We're not going to be getting to calls for people's families and their loved ones.
Hire more paramedics or the system will flatline. The dire public safety warning from the front line. And handmaids filming in Toronto had Twitter preaching, "Blessed be the fruit." Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. Toronto's Transit Authority lost $61 million last year to fare evasion. The data released today has the Auditor General calling for change and the Mayor calling foul. Hoea Fidel has been working on that story for us tonight, and she joins us now live from King Street. So let's start with the Mayor. What did he have to say today?
John Tory says it's absolutely unacceptable and work is underway to hire new fare inspectors. But the transition to Presto has been a bumpy ride from the beginning. And tonight, the TTC says you may be able to hold on to your tickets and tokens for a little longer. Avoiding paying for the TTC is much easier than you may think, says Andrew Meisner.
It's not really enforced. I guess people can kind of sneak through when the guy working there is busy.
Those sneaks cost the TTC $61 million. Tack on another $3.5 million because of faulty Metrolinx equipment. A new report from Toronto's Auditor General found almost $64 million in unpaid fares in 2018.
It doesn't really surprise me.
Why is that?
Just because I'm guilty of doing it too.
Presto allows passengers to use reloadable cards to tap on and off buses, trains, and streetcars, with some being more vulnerable to fare evasion than others.
A lot of times, they don't have guards at the stations anymore. They just have a sign that says "Put your money in there."
The report shows 27 recommendations to the TTC, including adding a proof of payment policy on streetcars with multiple doors. The TTC says it has accepted the recommendations. In a statement to CBC Toronto, it said, "Despite the difficult transition to this new system, Presto will provide us with an opportunity to track fare evasion more consistently and accurately than ever before." The complete phase-in of Presto will include the elimination of TTC tokens and tickets, but that was supposed to be in August this year, and now the TTC is tapping the brakes on the timeline.
We are continuing to sort of monitor when we will be doing that. Whether August is the date that we will do that, we're still sort of reviewing some options.
The TTC says it plans to hire 70 new fare inspectors to help bring down those fare evasions.
Okay, we'll try that one more time. Hoea, more bad news for Presto tonight as we are hearing another report that shows that ridership is down for Presto users.
That news is coming right from the top of the TTC. A report from the CEO shows that in December, monthly ridership was half of what they had expected with users that were using their Presto passes. But the TTC says there could be a couple of reasons for that, including the introduction of new fare options like the 2-hour transfer. And they also say that in December, the Metro Pass was still an option. And so all of those opportunities, different opportunities rather, to pay for the TTC could account for that decline in monthly ridership.
Thanks, Hoea. A public safety warning tonight from paramedics who say the number of ambulances on the streets of Toronto is dangerously low. In this CBC Toronto exclusive, John Lancaster explains what some are calling a system on the verge of collapse.
These screenshots taken by paramedics of an internal database tracking available ambulances show frequent short staffing is causing problems. On many days, there are only a handful of available ambulances to service the city's 2.8 million residents. At one point last January, there were none.
The system is seriously on the verge of collapse if it doesn't get a mass infusion of some more paramedics.
Mike Merriman is the head of Toronto's paramedic union. The service averages about 1,000 calls for help a day, but chronic shortages of paramedics is compromising public safety, he says. The problem is getting so bad, according to paramedics, Toronto is increasingly relying on neighboring municipalities like Peel, York, and Durham to provide emergency services. This veteran frontline paramedic is speaking out about the problem. He's risking his job for doing it, so we're not identifying him.
More often than not, it's their resources being sucked into our city because we are not adequately staffed to deal with the call volume.
This, as Mayor Tory urges many city departments to freeze budgets. Paramedics haven't increased staffing levels since 2016, despite almost 20,000 more calls for service last year. Response times have increased since 2016.
At this point in time, it's not even the low priority calls. We're talking the chest pains, the strokes, the shortness of breath. These people are still waiting for an ambulance when our resources are tied up. Ultimately, we're not going to be getting to calls for people's families and their loved ones in a proper time, and I think ultimately people will be dying.
The problem is also leading to a 5-fold increase in the number of paramedics off on operational leave due to stress, burnout, and injuries. The mayor's office and paramedic services both insist help is on the way, but that may not come until the 2020 budget. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Worry about the rising tide of incitements to violence when people use terms like treason and traitor in open discourse. Those are the words that lead to assassination. I'm worried that somebody's going to be shot in this country this year during the political campaign. I think it's totally unacceptable that a member of the Parliament of Canada would incite people to drive trucks over people after what happened in Toronto last summer. Totally unacceptable.
That was Canada's top public servant today with his own warning. The clerk of the Privy Council drawing parallels to April's Yonge Street van attack in relation to comments from a Conservative senator yesterday in Ottawa.
I know you've rolled all the way here, and I'm going to ask you one more thing. I want you to roll over every Liberal left in the country.
David Tkachuk was met with cheers as he belted that out to pro-pipeline group United We Roll. The campaign drove from Alberta to Parliament Hill to urge the federal government to build more pipelines. Some expressed concern the group also holds anti-immigrant and extreme right-wing views that, if fueled, the Privy Council clerk fears could be deadly. The investigation into Bruce McArthur's deadly spree in Toronto's gay village went all the way up to the top of the police today. Once again, the chief was forced to answer for his officers in relation to the case, this time over newly unsealed court documents. They show it's unclear if a criminal record check was conducted on McArthur when police interviewed him back in 2013. Farah Morelli has the story.
In the lead-up to Bruce McArthur's appearance in court, little, if any, information about the investigation was released to not bias the case. Now that he's pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, new details are slowly coming to light. Recently unsealed documents from the case show that investigators knew McArthur had ties to 3 missing men in Project Houston. This document shows that on November 11, 2013, McArthur was brought in for a video interview. They took a statement from him that confirmed he knew 2 of the men who were missing at the time, Skanda Navaratnam and Majid Kahan. But in that interview, he confirmed his email address as silverfox51@hotmail.com, an address that was scrawled on a notepad at the 3rd victim, Abdel Nasser Vazi's house. From that, police were able to confirm McArthur had links to all 3 men. What's unclear now is if investigators did a criminal record check on McArthur, who at the time had a 2001 conviction for assaulting a man in the village with a metal pipe. That record was expunged in 2014. This former Toronto police detective says, given the circumstances, it's likely that investigators would have done that check.
Generally speaking, regular witnesses routinely, you don't videotape everyone. But I would think that given the circumstances, in all likelihood, they would have done a check on McArthur before they did that videotaped interview. If I had been the investigator in that particular case, knowing what little circumstances I do, that I would have likely run a record check on him prior to him coming in.
MacArthur would not become a person of interest in the killings until 4 years after that interview in 2017. My question is, did those investigators conduct a criminal record check either before or after this interview?
Yeah, so what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to dissect the investigation. It's going to be the sum of all parts equals a whole. I think the board has spoke to it, and I've spoke to it as well.
Today, Police Chief Mark Saunders wouldn't answer the question, except to say, we don't have the full picture. The question is whether or not investigators did their work or not, and looked to see if he had a criminal record, because that might have changed the course of the investigation potentially.
I'm certainly not going to live in a world of ifs, but I will address your limited knowledge on the investigation, because your knowledge is limited. The investigators have a more fulsome, and so they are good at what they do. I fully support them. And as expressed, you have questions right now, and we want to answer it, and we will answer it.
We spoke to the chief there as he was coming out of the Toronto Police Services board meeting, and one of the things that was discussed is that the board's actually asking the Attorney General to expand the scope of this independent review that's happening right now into how police handle missing persons investigations. Right now, none of the Bruce MacArthur files are part of that review, but the board is hoping to see the review expanded to include that. And that would, of course, include this interview that we're talking about tonight that happened back in 2013. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Time now for a first look at your weather forecast with Colette Kennedy. And Colette, it delivered on a nice day today.
Yeah, it was a nice day today. You know, this is a nice opportunity for us to stop and kind of catch our breath when it comes to what's going on with the weather. We've got another quiet day ahead, and then at least part of Saturday, and then things will change, which we'll talk about later on in the show. I just want to work you through what's happening tonight and into tomorrow, and then we'll get just a peek at what's to come. So through the overnight hours, at times we're going to continue to see some of the cloudier conditions. It'll be a bit spotty, and then the clouds breaking up even more as we come towards the morning hours. Partly cloudy in a few areas to start, but otherwise it's mostly going to be a sunny day, and most areas around the GTA starting off with that sunshine, a few clouds here and there, but just a nice weather day, and the winds not as strong as what they were today. It's into Saturday later in the day, so the clouds will move in first, but later into the evening hours, we're going to see this next system catching up to us, and that's what I'm going to show you in more detail later in the show. But for overnight tonight, -6, feeling like about -10. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 to 2 degrees with a good deal of sunshine. Very nice conditions for a Friday, Chris.
All right, sounds good. That's a good sneak peek, and we'll see you later on in the show.
Sounds good.
All right, coming up, as residents of 650 Parliament continue to wait for word they can move back in 6 months after a catastrophic electrical fire, the city is taking action to ensure it doesn't happen anywhere else. That story after the break. The head of Toronto Community Housing is off the job. The departure comes after an external probe looking at the controversial hiring of a management consultant agency. The TCH board says Kathy Milsom did not follow protocols. Mayor John Tory called the situation disappointing and says the board made the right decision.
Again, we have to maintain high standards when it comes to the conduct of people who are in these jobs and the way these companies are administered. And so the change is going to take place.
Milsom is the fourth CEO to be let go in a decade. Kevin Marshman, the current chair of the board, will become the new CEO on April 3rd. Whoever ends up becoming the next boss over at Hydro One won't make as much as the last one, who you might remember picked up the name the $6 Million Man.
Today's directive that we issued sends a clear message that we have an expectation for a reasonable base compensation or salary and remuneration for the board as well.
Energy Minister Greg Rickford there saying his government is ordering Hydro One to cap the compensation of its CEO and board of directors. It can do that because it still holds about half the shares of the privatized company. The CEO's salary will be capped at $1.5 million. But Hydro One says that's half of what it needs to retain someone qualified. During last year's election campaign, Doug Ford nicknamed the last Hydro One CEO the $6 Million Man and vowed to prevent pricey paychecks in the future. The province's order also caps the pay for the chair of the company's board of directors at $120,000. It isn't compensation that's top of mind for residents of a St. Jamestown high-rise, but a return date. It's been exactly 6 months since an electrical fire tore through 650 Parliament, displacing 1,500 people. As Kelda Yoon reports tonight, still no timeline from the property manager.
Small living room, little desk area.
After staying in hotels for 4 months, Mark Slipinski finally moved into this downtown apartment in December. Temporary accommodations provided by the management of 650 Parliament.
It still doesn't replace being at home, so it's been a frustrating experience for everybody.
At the same time, he says,
the sense of urgency has kind of died down.
Last August, 1,500 tenants were suddenly displaced when an electrical fire in the basement of 650 Parliament caused extensive damage. The city says all tenants have now found a place to stay.
Some of those accommodations are condominiums, apartments within the vicinity. Others have made arrangements to stay with family and friends.
Slipinski says all are wondering when they can return, but management said today,
I'm reluctant to provide tenants with a date until I have greater certainty.
After the fire and a flood at 260 Wellesley that left residents without power for 3 days, Slipinski is concerned for his neighbors.
I think my biggest frustration now is what's happening with the other buildings and, whether or not, another disaster is on the horizon for those people.
That's actually what the city is hoping to prevent. Inspectors have been inside 240 Wellesley since early this morning conducting an electrical safety review. Tenants will be without heat, water, and electricity for up to 48 hours. But many tell me that's a price they're willing to pay to ensure that they're safe.
I think it's necessary for this building also because they are all of same age.
I'm pretty happy about it. I heard about the fire in the building across the street and I was quite worried.
Inspections were made at the neighboring 280 Wellesley 2 weeks ago. Inspectors uncovered a fault in one of the heat risers. This time around, they said they will be doing an even more thorough inspection.
We're going in unit by unit with an electrical contractor to make sure that there are no fire issues, fire risks, electrical violations.
These inspections are all part of a safety blitz of large apartment buildings announced by Mayor John Tory just earlier this month. This was prompted by the fire at 650 Parliament as well as the flooding at 260 Wellesley. Both those apartments are over 50 years old and are owned by the same company. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And we can tell you tonight that the inspection done today at 240 Wellesley found no major faults and power is being restored gradually to the entire building tonight. All right, Nike is facing a wave of backlash after a Duke University basketball player's shoe exploded. Yeah, you heard that right, and you will want to see it right after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A wardrobe malfunction has Nike on the defensive today.
Watch what he plants right here. His foot comes out of his shoe. That's unbelievable.
He broke his shoe with his own foot.
Unbelievable, and that happened less than a minute into Duke University taking on North Carolina yesterday. Star player Zion Williamson's Nike shoe split open. He was out for the rest of the game with a knee injury, and the team is saying today he has a mild knee sprain and is day-to-day. People were quick to blame Nike for the incident, and the company's stock took a hit this morning. Time now for another look at your weather forecast with Colette. And Colette, last night around this time, you had a lovely beach behind you. But that's not the weather we ended up seeing today.
Yeah, I was talking about, yes, all those times when we do happen to get really mild days in February. Well, what I can say about it, it's not beach weather, but temperatures are running a little bit above seasonal, and that carries on for a few days, in fact, through the weekend, and then things are going to turn around on us. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through overnight tonight, looking at our temperature, the trend around -6, into Friday, hitting about 1, but that's around 2 p.m., could get up to about 2 degrees. Saturday night, well, nothing all that unusual, -5. That's actually milder than we should be this time of year. Saturday starts to get interesting. 2 degrees, this is at 9 o'clock at night, so it's going to be in the evening hours as this next system approaches. And then look what happens, 5 a.m. Sunday, it's 4 degrees, so the temperature rising through the overnight. And then Sunday by about 9 a.m., so Sunday morning, if the timing stays the same, that's when we're going to see some of the mildest air. And then by afternoon, that temperature is starting to plummet with some very windy conditions as this next system is moving in. So let me time it out for you. We get that lovely day tomorrow to just kind of catch our breath, and it's Saturday that things change. Early part of Saturday looks fine. We get some clouds into the afternoon hours. It's Saturday evening, starting off in some areas to the north as a bit of a mix, otherwise coming into some rain showers because of those mild temperatures I was just showing you. Then it's a rain event in through the day Sunday, a windy rain event, so some of that rain coming sideways. And then into Sunday on the backside, so into the evening, colder air moving in, and then we'll be seeing some of that light snow in areas prone to getting lake effect. You'll be seeing some more significant snow and some of those banners starting to set up late in the day on Sunday. Overnight tonight for southwestern Ontario, we're looking at -8 for your low. Partly cloudy conditions and a lot of sunshine around tomorrow with highs of 2 to 3 degrees. A nice Friday there as well. Here it's -6 to -8, and then tomorrow those highs 1 to 2 degrees with the sun. And then we get into Saturday. That's that transition day, but not till evening. Those showers move in. 8 in the morning, then the temperature falling, windy conditions, and mixed precipitation as colder air filters in, and then into Monday, Tuesday next week. Yeah, we're going to end this month on a chillier, not a beach scene, I'll tell you that much, Chris.
Certainly not beach weather, but at least it's not -30.
Yeah. You're always so positive. That's exactly right. That's lovely.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
A sea of red and white took over City Hall today, and it wasn't Canadian flags. We'll tell you more after the break. A procession of handmaids were under his eye around Nathan Phillips Square today.
This is so funny.
Fans flocked to City Hall to see the handmaids dressed in red cloaks and white bonnets filming in the square. Production clearly underway for season 3 of the Emmy-winning television series The Handmaid's Tale, inspired by Margaret Atwood's novel of the same name. This is a sight Torontonians would have recognized in the series before. Scenes were filmed in the downtown core for season 1 and season 2, and the city sent out a tweet on social media early in the morning, warning people not to be concerned if you hear or see anything unusual. And that would certainly classify as unusual. That's our show for tonight. I'll be back here with you again tomorrow night. Have a great one.